Okay, we have a question about rehydrating tobacco. Do you do anything different for flake tobaccos? So, with flake tobaccos, what I normally do is if they're usually stuck together anyway because they're dried out, um, rub it all out, make a ready rub out of it, and then do the rehydration that way. It might take just a little bit longer. You might have to come back to it because it'll absorb inward versus not, the other way around. When you dry it out, the moisture has to go outward. And when you have that dense flake, even pieces of the ready rub, that's what's left of the flake, it still takes some time. It's not like, a mixture where it's just ribbon, where it's real thin. The moisture happens, to go through the leaf, which is just a little piece, will happen quick. So even with ready rub, which that's will end up being, you're going to have to rub it out. But yeah, my experience, I had a couple in the past where there was a cracked tin and it was, all the flakes are stacked on one another and you couldn't really break it. You couldn't take it apart in flake form. It just kind of fell apart. So yeah, just rub it out and do your rehydration that way. Another question on rehydration of pipe tobacco. Would you recommend distilled water or regular water is fine? Distilled water is a little bit better to use. I'm not 100% sure what regular water is, if it's tap water, if it's drinking water. I would just use distilled to be on the safe side. You never know what kind of impurities are involved in, well water, or tap water has all those chlorine and fluoride, all this other stuff that's you don't know what's in it, so you're adding chemicals. There's chemicals in the water and tap water, so you don't want to add that to a rehydration thing. You don't know if there's mold spores floating around. So just use distilled water and do what was described in the rehydration video, where you just wet the towels and let the tobacco just soak in the water for a little bit, and then let it sit for a while. Okay, so this question is about drying tobacco out. Would you suggest that I take the tobacco out of the jar, let it dry, then put it back in the jar? Okay, I'm assuming that you're referring to bulk tobacco because you have it jarred up. I only take out what you plan on smoking. So I normally smoke like 2 ounces at a time, or 1.5 ounces or whatever. So I will pull out 2 ounces of that tobacco, dry it, and put it in a different jar. Put it in, one of these tins, or you can have one of these smaller jars or whatever and smoke out of that, and then have that smoked down within a 6-month period because you dried it out. If it dries out longer, if it sits dried out longer than 6 months, you're going to have to rehydrate it, and then you're going to have to let it sit again. So take out what you want to smoke and then let it dry. You're not putting it back in the same jar because you're mixing it with the rest of your tobacco. Unless you plan on smoking your whole jar, then you can dry your whole jar out and put it back in that same jar if you plan on smoking that whole jar within, a 6-month time frame. So that depending on what you're doing, that's how I would address that issue. But take out what you want to smoke within the next 6 months, and that's it. Or you can go the route of taking a bowl's worth and putting it on a board, like a chopping block board, a little cutting board, and letting it dry out overnight or whatever, or 8 hours. The problem I have with that is there's different humidity in the house, different times of the year. And if you forget to put a bowl's worth of tobacco out, so you're rushing out, for work, and then you come home and you're like, shit, I forgot. And now you're going to smoke wet tobacco, or you're not going to smoke at all. So to have this stuff sitting here already dried out, ready to go, you don't have to worry about that that daily, day to day putting bowls out of tobacco. Dry out what you want to smoke within 6 months. Smoke within 6 months and enjoy it. Okay, a question about pipe tobacco preparation. What about putting a bowl's quantity in the microwave for 10 seconds? That was part of my trials back in the day. The problem is the microwave heats the tobacco. You don't want to add heat to the tobacco. You don't want to dry it out at room temperature. Or if it's real goopy, I tend to put it in direct sunlight. Now, it does get a little warm in direct sunlight. And then I would put it back in the tin that it came in and keep the lid open. So for instance, something like this, I crack this tin, I dump it out, it's goopy aromatic. I will dump it all out. I will keep this outside too, because there's moisture in this plastic. There is moisture in this plastic. And when you're done, you put all the heated tobacco from the sunlight, not from the microwave, from the sunlight in there, close it up, let it cool down. You open it up, this is all beaded up. There's moisture in here. This is all beaded up, and there's still moisture coming off the tobacco. So between the two, you don't want to do that. Again, back to the microwave, that's just a no-no, because you're introducing microwaves, the waves themselves, into the tobacco. It's heating up, it's artificial heat. It's not the sunlight drying it out. You're going to have to go through so many different types of experiments on seconds, and maybe even a defrost mode, and all types of craziness to get that moisture out, but you're heating it up. Now, I have tried it way back in the day, and what had happened is, it dried it out a little bit. It dried it out. Not like it should have. Sometimes it ended up being like a wet sock, like a Galwith flake. And what would happen is be a hot, wet sock, and then I would dry it out, and guess what? It wouldn't taste right. So basically, you're almost stoving the tobacco, and under no pressure at all. So you're losing, when the tobacco heats up, that's where the flavor happens. And you're losing some of that flavor in the microwave. I hope that makes some sense to you.